Welcome back to another edition of the Josh Hall podcast. And today we have a new thing for all of you who tune in regularly. Actually, you're stuck with just me today. This is the first time I've ever done a podcast on my own. Usually I have a guest. And the reason I have a guest is because whenever I don't have anything to say, I can just let the guest talk, and that's just way easier. But I'm going to venture out into the brave world of solo podcasting just for a few minutes, mostly because I had something I wanted to talk about quickly. It's not the most important thing ever, I guess, but it's important enough that I decided to do a little podcast episode on it, so I guess it's somewhat important. But I wanted to talk about this new Superman movie that just released last weekend. I think it was last weekend. And I wanted to talk about it because I went to see it, and I've seen a lot of online reactions. People have plenty of opinions about really everything. People have opinions about everything in the world, which makes for an interesting world that we live in. But I had some opinions. Other people had opinions, so I just wanted to get on here and react to the movie. So I just have a couple thoughts that I wrote down, and I'll give you those thoughts, and then that'll be it. So hopefully this will be a shorter episode. I don't plan to talk for an hour or anything. But the main thing is that I actually really liked the movie more than I kind of hoped to like it. So going in, I was hopeful that it would be good. I thought it looked interesting, just from viewing the trailer, but I also know that most stuff coming out of Hollywood production studios recently has not been amazing. So, I was kind of expecting to be let down, but I was not. I came away very pleasantly surprised and just found it to be an overall enjoyable experience. And here are some reasons why. So my first thought on this movie is that it really was what, in my opinion, a comic book movie should be. It's fun, it's relaxed, and it's kind of positive and uplifting, and it doesn't take itself too seriously. We kind of came through an era there for a while where superhero movies were really very dark, gritty, serious. If you think back to like the Christopher Nolan Batman movies, those have kind of been the gold standard when it comes to superhero movies for a long time, but they're a very dark and gritty tone. I think that fits Batman okay, and I think that those movies are great, but a lot of, I think, people have tried to make other superhero movies kind of in that vein. Even some of the Marvel movies were that way a little bit, not quite as much. Marvel knew that they had to be somewhat fun and enjoyable, somewhat relaxed, but they were, even like the early Iron Mans, I think, were a little bit darker. Then when they tried to make Superman about 12 years ago, the Man of Steel movie, they really tried to lean in and make Superman dark, foreboding, gritty. He was kind of a brooding character and just kind of like seemed like he was always upset about something, and people didn't resonate with people because, I'm not the biggest like comic book nerd ever. Really, I don't even know if I've ever like read through an entire comic book, but my understanding is that Superman is supposed to be a fun, relaxed, kind of optimistic character, kind of a nerd, kind of tries to do the right thing, and he's not a pessimist, I guess I'll say. I don't know how else to say it, but that's what they really leaned into here, is that Superman is supposed to be a positive character, and they really, as I said, leaned into it. This idea is kind of making its way around the internet. I've seen a bunch of memes even the last couple of days. The kids are calling it Hope Core, which I barely know what that means. But it seems like people they really are enjoying the positive energy of the movie. Saw one person said that they think it may have cured their depression. So, so that's kind of funny. It's relaxed, it's fun, and I really appreciated that. There's just fun elements. Superman has a dog, which is not something you would have seen in the Man of Steel. Just because it was so serious, so it wouldn't have fit the tone, obviously. But it's a fun addition when you watch the movie. So yeah, just some fun elements like that sort of thing. And again, it doesn't take itself too seriously. This is one of my pet peeves when it comes to movies, is a movie that takes itself too seriously usually ends up being a joke by accident. Most movies are not going to be the greatest movie ever made. And this movie doesn't try to be the greatest movie ever made. It just tries to be what it is. And so oftentimes when a movie understands its place in the world of movies, I guess, really in the world of art, it knows where it fits, then it ends up being a much more enjoyable experience. Again, I'll use the Batman trilogy from Christopher Nolan as an example. Again, amazing movies. People love them for a good reason. I love them. But there are points when, because the movie takes itself very seriously, it becomes funny. So a good example of this is people like to make fun of Christian Bale's voice in the movie because he tries to sound serious and important like Batman, and so it becomes kind of a joke. Because the movie was trying to be serious, it becomes funny, if that makes sense. So that's a danger when a movie takes itself too seriously, and this new Superman movie doesn't do that. Some other things kind of going along with the positive element. I love the colors in this movie. It's just very bright and vibrant. There's a lot of just stark color contrasts. Everything's just very, like I said, it's very bright. Even like his suit is very bright red, bright blue. The dog is a bright white, stark white color. The city is bright. People's clothes are bright. So just a generally a bright, happy environment, taking it up a lot from the darker, more muted colors of Man of Steel from 2013. So the colors are great. The music's great, of course. John Williams always delivers, even in his elderly age. So props to him. Go check out the score if you haven't checked it out yet. The casting is fantastic. So that to me, a good movie is always character driven, and characters are driven by the writing and driven by the cast. So I didn't know much about the cast when I heard their names. Let's see, Superman was played by David Corenswet, didn't really know who that was. Lois Lane's played by Rachel Brosnahan, I believe is her name. Didn't know who that was. Lex Luthor is played by Nicholas Hoult. I had seen a couple things from him, but not a lot. And then some other actors. Again, I really didn't know anyone in this movie besides Nick Hoult, and then Bradley Cooper made an appearance. That's a small spoiler if you haven't seen it yet. But they all did amazing. And one thing I liked is that it was an unknown cast. I think that using previously unknown actors helps kind of make it a new thing, kind of a breath of fresh air. And so the actor playing Superman, David Corenswet, he did I think a very good job of making Superman just kind of a fun, even like I'll use the word silly character. Not silly, but like he tries to be good. He tries to do the right thing all the time. And sometimes it works for him and sometimes it doesn't. But he's I heard one person say, he's kind of the moral compass of the story. He knows what's right. He says what's right. He does the right thing kind of without thinking about it sometimes. And sometimes that gets him into trouble. And then everybody else around him kind of thinks about things from a more nuanced point of view. So like Lois helps him to think through things from a more nuanced point of view. And that's kind of the spark between them, is that he's trying to do the right thing. And she's like, well, have you thought about this? Have you thought about it like this? And sometimes that frustrates him. But that just makes him very relatable. And it also makes him, he's not an all-powerful being, if that makes sense. So that's often been the criticism of Superman, is that he's too powerful, he's too good, you can't beat him, so he's boring. But the way that this movie and the way that James Gunn, the director, portrayed him is he is good, but that doesn't mean he always does the right thing. But he always tries to do the right thing, which is a relatable thing for most of us. I think most of us often try to do the right thing in life, but it doesn't always work out. And so I find that to be relatable. So the casting's great. The chemistry between Lois and Clark is fantastic. The supporting cast, is awesome. There's just a lot of colorful characters. I really enjoyed the Jimmy Olsen character. I really enjoyed Mr. Terrific, who shows up, who's a comic book character. Again, I'm not a comic book savant, so I'm learning about some of this as it comes along. What's the guy's name? Eddie something plays Mr. Terrific, but was absolutely terrific. Kind of stole the show in some points. So just an excellent cast all around. The story is character-driven, so it's driven by the personalities and choices of the characters. The story is not driven by, jumping from action scene to action scene, or trying to show you the next coolest thing that they can do with their special effects. The action's good. The fight scenes were engaging and pretty intense in a couple points, but really the story is driven by the people, the characters in it, and the things that they decide to do. So I love that. Okay, let me talk quickly about the stuff that people are complaining about online. So people are complaining that I saw people say it's a woke movie. I saw people say it's a political movie. So basically, here's my take on that. I don't care. So, and then here's what I mean. Every movie, every story that you've ever heard in your entire life has one agenda or another. An agenda is just a message. So some stories have messages you agree with, and some have messages you don't agree with. But part of growing up and being a mature thinker is that you're able to intake a message that someone else is saying and hear the message, understand it, and not agree with it, and then move on and be fine. I think that there's an idea kind of in our culture right now that we all have to be reactionary all the time. If we hear or see something that we don't agree with, we have to get upset. We have to say something. We have to react to it if we don't agree with some idea. And I think that is honestly dumb and childish. You ought to be able to intake things you don't agree with and then move on, unchanged and unaffected. And the truth is, I didn't find this particular movie to be woke or political really at all. I think that there were a couple statements that the director was hinting at, but nothing that was blatant, nothing that was so woke or so transgressive to my morals that I couldn't watch it. Not at all. I think that the director there's a scenario in it that kind of sets up a war between two countries that I think was, he probably had the Russia-Ukraine conflict in mind for that. And that's fine. Like, James Gunn, the director, is totally allowed to have his opinions on that. And he's the one making the movie. So, he's an adult that has his opinion. I'm an adult that has my opinion. And I can watch his movie. I can notice that he makes a comment sort of subtly about something like the Russia-Ukraine war, or about billionaires, or about immigration. Some people were talking about that. And then after I see that, I can say, great, that's what he thinks. I know what I think. And that's awesome. Maybe we agree. Maybe we don't agree. Great. It doesn't affect me at all. I don't care. I can watch his movie that he made and then move on with my life. So I just wanted to put that thought out there, that you don't have to be reactionary to every single thing that you may or may not disagree with in the culture, in pop culture. A mature thinker can hear opposing ideas and remain unaffected. Unfazed is a good word. If I would say anything negative about it, I would say that the biggest weakness that I came away with watching was that I struggled to understand a little bit what the villain, Lex Luthor's, motivation was. So if I was going to complain about one thing, I would say make it a little bit more clear as to what Luthor's motivation was against Superman. They talked about envy at one point, and then, which is good, but it should have been fleshed out a little bit more. And then at one point, I remember Lex just saying that nothing's felt right since Superman showed up, which I thought was kind of a funny line. So So I would like to see a little bit more fleshing out of his motivation. But that was really the main thing I came up with as I was brainstorming ideas for this little podcast. So yeah, that's about all I have for you today. But those are my thoughts. Would definitely recommend going and seeing it. It is a very hopeful movie. Fun, relaxed, and don't be reactionary. Just hear what other people have to say, think it through, and then move on with your life, because there are more important things to do. So that's all, and we'll see you back here next time.